Hello students, today we will learn about the complex weaves and also the weave and color effects and the pile fabrics and also the honeycomb fabrics. And actually complex weaves, when you take, as the name indicates, they are complex in nature. That means that there is a design or a texture or a pattern which forms an integral part of the weave structure, and it cannot be just removed without dismantling the fabric. So, the process of production here is going to be complex as compared to the fundamental weaves, and they are expensive definitely, and also that they will be applied only for some of the special functions and all. It involves changing the pattern, the interlacement between the design and the background of the fabric. Generally, the interlacements are controlled by the papillon's position during the weaving process. And here more number of harnesses are being used. So, employing these harnesses in more number, and it produces and also improves the possibilities of obtaining different textures and different designs on the fabrics. The technique used for producing these fabrics vary in complexity, and so their cost as well as the serviceability are influenced by this. Fabrics that are produced in this kind of complex weaves include some pattern fabrics and open work fabrics, and also three-dimensional fabrics such as pile fabrics. Then coming to the color and weave effects. Now, any fabric, if there is a color in that, it will be definitely an interesting one. And so, color plays a dominant role in the selection of textiles, and as the consumer gives more importance, and also he is influenced by the color, particular color present in the fabric rather than the quality. The luster of the fabric is also important because it influences the color. Sometimes the colors may be looking dull or brighter and also more lustrous and all, just because of the shining that is present in the fabric, and so definitely it also influences the selection of the fabrics by the consumer. So, textiles are dyed generally in different stages, such as it may be dyed at the fiber stage or at the sliver stage, even before the formation of the yarn, and yarn stage, and also the fabric stage, and sometimes they are also dyed at the garment stage. But the color can change the visual effect of the weave, and generally influenced by the color of the warp and weft yarns, and also the floats of the warp and weft that come on the face of the fabric and the weave itself. These effects actually permit the designer to observe the effect that a color plan will produce for a given weave. To see the effect of the color on the weave, generally we can take a point paper, and then a designer can actually come out with many number of combinations and weave effects by just a simple paper, because if in order to produce it, it may take some lot of resources, and also it is costly, and so making designs on the paper is a easy process, and so this is being employed by many designers. The important parameters required for making these kind of color plans is that the order of warping, the order of wefting, and also the weave. So, if you know these three, we will be able to come out with the color and the weave effects. And to just say as an example, to come out with a simple color and weave effect, first of all we can take one weave, maybe say a twill weave, a 2 by 2 twill weave, a 3 by 3 twill weave, we can take it up, and then maybe we can assign two colors to that. So, colors or the shades of a same color may also be applied. In that, first of all, we will take the weave diagram, and in that the warp floats coming on the top may be indicated with the dots, and then we take one of the colors, maybe say a dark color, and this dark color will be used to actually fill the the floats of the warp on the face of the fabric. that means on the one side of the paper you can fill it up, and then later we can, that is done alternatively, because two yarns of the same color, only we are coloring wherever the floats are there on the wave diagram, and then leaving the other two in another color, we will again take the other two, and that means first two will be in one color, 3, 4 will be left like that, and then 5, 6 will be in the same color. So, we will be making the we will be filling all the warp floats over there, and so you can see the effect how it comes. So, there will be a change in this, and actually we have the twill weave, the design on the twill weave has an interesting texture, an interesting diagonal lines. So, that may not be shown here and it looks a different weave. And then thirdly, we can do the same thing with the weft also. That means, alternatively we can take this color and fill the weft floats coming up on the top of the or face of the weave. Thus, we can produce a very interesting surface, a very interesting weave effect, color and weave effect, and it actually changes dramatically the whole thing. And so, it is a small example, or it demonstrates the color and weave effects in weaving. The order of coloring the threads can be classified like simple warping and simple wefting, simple warping and compound wefting, and simple wefting and compound warping, and compound warping and compound wefting. When you take the first and the last one, that is simple warping and simple wefting, and compound warping and compound wefting, in these two the order of warping will be same, or it may be different from the order of wefting. To each order of the coloring, simple, stripe and check weaves may be applied. So, the style of pattern which is produced by the combination of these things can be in such a way that if we take the first simple warping and simple wefting order, then we find that a simple weave will have a simple pattern, and a stripe weave will have a stripe pattern, and a check weave will have a check pattern. Then coming to the second order of coloring, like simple warping and compound wefting, we find that the simple weave will have a stripe pattern, and in case of stripe weave it will have a stripe pattern, and if it is a check weave then it will be a check pattern that can be woven. And coming to the third one, that is simple wefting and compound warping, we found that, and it will have a crossover pattern in case of simple weave, and it will be producing a checked pattern or in a striped weave, and also it produces a checked pattern in a checked weave. And coming to the last one, that is compound warping and compound wefting, here also, and in all the weaves, like whether it may be a simple one, or it may be a striped weave, or it may be a checked weave, it all produces only checkered patterns. Effects produced by simple weave and color combinations are there. A designer can produce attractive effects by arranging the warp and weft in different combinations in a different order from the warp, and so changing the weft also. In designing simple color and weave combinations, the arrangements of the threads as to color may be regular or it may be irregular. By applying simple weave to simple orders of coloring, the effects produced are continuous line effects, hound tooth patterns, bird's eye and spot effects, step patterns, and hairlines and all over patterns. So, in case of continuous effects, we have the lines produced by the pattern runs lengthwise or horizontal wise along the cloth, and the example shown in this figure is a 2 by 2 twill in the order of 2 dark and 2 light. And coming to the hound's tooth pattern, the order of coloring is 4 dark and 4 light in warp and weft, and the weave 2 by 2 will be there. And different variations are also possible by changing the weave and order of coloring in this kind of patterns. And then coming to the bird's eye and spot effects, and these effects are related to patterns in which the surface of the cloth is covered with distinct small detached spots of color, and so the pattern name of the pattern. So, the spot patterns can be produced by simple order of warping and wefting. A spot is formed where a warp color is intersected by the weft. Desirable patterns are produced by arranging the warp or weft floats suitably in places where different colors intersect. Then coming to the hairline effect, these effects produced by solid vertical or horizontal lines in 2 or more colors. As each line of color equals to one thread, the name of hairline effect is derived. But it may be also extended to 2 or more threads, and weaves such as plain, hopsack and satinette etc. can be used with different color orders. Then coming to the step patterns, these patterns produce zigzag lines or color that runs diagonally by running by uniting the vertical and also horizontal lines. An ordinary even twill with equal warp and weft can be utilized for this getting the particular effects. Coming to the all over effects, as the name indicates, the color effects run in an unbroken pattern over the surface of the fabric. These effects are constructed by suitably arranging the repeat of the color plan and also the repeat of the weave in such a way that 2 or more repeats of a weave are required to produce a complete repeat of the pattern. Pile fabrics, and pile weave is a fancy weave and the ground is usually a plain or the twill weave. And the weave introduces a decorative third dimension to the fabric, and whereas all the other fabrics are having only 2 dimensions, but here the depth of the fabric will be increased by pile weave. The construction is desirable when warmth is required or some softness or some absorbency of the fabrics are required, and generally these pile fabrics are both functional as well as decorative. So, functional in case if the towels are required, and decorative in case of velvets or velveteens and other materials. Generally, these pile fabrics are more durable if there is a high count present in the ground fabric, and the low twist if yarns are used for making the pile, then it is going to be highly absorbent. The 3-dimensional effect is achieved by an extra set of either warp yarns or weft yarns that are introduced into the particular interlacement, and these extra set forms the loops on the surface. So, these loops are left like that, or it may be cut in order to produce more softness and more luster, and in case of velvets and all, and so they will become a cut piles in that case, and if they are left like that in case of Turkish towels and all, we call it as a uncut pile. In use, generally the pile wears out first, leaving the ground fabric, but it is necessary to have a strong base also for these things. So, that the ground fabric is if it is firm and strong, then it increases the resistance to shedding or pulling out of all these cut piles, especially from the ground fabric. And a dense pile is required as it stands better and also it is more durable. The pile is usually around 1/4 inch or a half inch, and it depends upon the requirement of the particular fabric or special function. The fabrics are differentiated as warp pile and weft pile fabrics depending upon the extra set of yarns used for making the pile. In that case, they are called as if warp yarns are extra used, then it is called as the warp pile fabric, or otherwise if weft is used as an extra for making the pile, it is called as a weft pile fabrics. Coming to the warp pile fabrics, these fabrics are produced by 2 sets of warp yarns and 1 set of weft yarns, because we need 1 set of warp and 1 set of weft for interlacing the ground fabric. And then the extra set which is used to make this pile is the warp here, and this warp will be placed along the other warp beam, but it on a different warp beam, and then there are different methods of producing actually the loops over here, and maybe we can say that there are around 3 methods that are generally followed. One is the double cloth method. This, as the name indicates, and 2 fabrics are actually woven face to face, one on the top, one at the bottom, and 2 sets of warps and 2 sets of wefts are required for this, and the extra set of warp yarns are also present separate warp beam. And so, this warp beam actually produces the pile over here by interlacing actually the top and the bottom fabrics. So, the ground weave may be a plain weave or a twill weave or satin weave. As usual, 2 sheds are formed and 2 shuttles are thrown in, and after weaving the fabrics are cut apart while still on the loom by a travelling knife which passes back and forth. And it is possible to produce only cut pile fabrics in this method, and the space between the actually the 2 fabrics will decide upon how much depth of the pile that is going to come up on the fabrics. Generally, this is the interlacement may be of 2 types also. One is a V shaped one, and one is, that means that each alternative yarn, that means the yarn that forms the pile will be interlacing with alternative yarns of both the fabrics. It will go down and go to the alternatively on the upper fabric, and then it will be again interlaced on the bottom fabric and then upper fabric again, like that. It is a V shaped interlacement, and in another way, and we can see that it leaves one yarn in each one, and so it interlaces over the other one and then comes up onto the second fabric. Up and down it will be moving and interlacing like that, so that the piles are being formed, and it depends upon whether we require the dense pile or pile which is little scattered, just because fabrics are costly, and sometimes to produce some economic fabrics and all, and then some they will go for scanty pile fabrics and all. So, but there will be a special function for them again, and so they are even produced. So, all type of velvet fabrics produced by the double cloth method are all having generally a very dense pile, and so they look beautiful, and so they generally they are all produced by taking yarns of one color to the bottom and yarns of different color for making the pile on the top of the fabric. It gives a beautiful effect also. And then coming to the second method, that is woven wire method. In this, a single cloth is woven by this method. The weaving here employs wires that are placed across the width of the loom over the ground warp and under the pile warp, and the size of this wire is determined by the depth of the pile to be produced. When the pile is made, first the warp yarns that form the pile are raised by the harnesses to form the shed. Then the wire is inserted through the shed that is already being made, and then the filling yarn is shot through. Then when the pile warps are lowered, it loops over the wire and is held in place by the next filling. Then it is withdrawn. So, the ground is woven for a certain number of picks. Then again wires are introduced. Then each wire has a knife edge, and which cuts the yarn that are looped. And if the loops are required in the form of uncut loops, then only the wires will not have any knife edges. Otherwise, for cut piles and all, the wires will have a cut edge, and which can actually cut away the thing and then make it a dense pile, a cut pile. And fabrics produced by this method include good quality velvets and also plushes, frieze and uncut upholstery materials. And then coming to third method of producing the warp pile fabrics, that is slack tension or terry weave method, which is a very common method that is producing the turkey towels. We call it as a turkey towel, especially it is used for having more absorbency. And so, generally the pile yarns that are used here are going to be a low twisted fabrics in order to facilitate more absorbency. And also this is an inexpensive method of pile weaving. It is formed by a special weaving arrangement. It is popularly known as 3-pick arrangement, in which 3 picks are put through and battened with the motion of the reed. So, the easiest way to make this construction is to use 4 harnesses and 2 harnesses for the ground warp and 2 harnesses for pile warp. Now, first the pile warps are raised and 2 filling yarns are shot through, and then now the pile warps are lowered and the ground warps are raised again, then the third pick is being inserted. Then all these 3 picks are battened firmly by the reed at the same time into the fell of the cloth. So, these picks move the along the ground warp and push the pile warp into loops, and after the second pick is being inserted, there is a let of motion that causes the pile warps to slacken, and while the ground threads are in taut condition, in tension, under tension. The loops may be present on one side of the fabric or it may come on either side. Maybe in that case the warp beam, one on the top, one at the bottom may be placed, so that when they slacken, and these two will be forming loops on the face and also at the back side of the fabric. In that case the fabrics may be reversible in line. So, Turkish towels are made by this process, and often this method is synonymous with terry weave. The fabric is used for bath towels, beach robes and also the sportswear. Polyester cotton blends are produced by taking yarn for ground and also cotton as pile, because cotton has the better absorbency, and whereas polyester has very good strength as a ground fabric. Then coming to the filling pile method, in this type of weaving the pile is formed by an extra set of weft yarns that are being used here. And so, the pile in filling pile fabrics is not made in the form of loops over here, but it only floats on the surface of the fabric or on the face of the fabric. One set of warp and 2 sets of filling yarns are used in this, and the extra set of filling yarns float over the ground material, and these floats are cut later with a special machine, where these floats are being guided to raise from the ground fabric, and the revolving knives, they can cut away or they clip away the pile, and so it comes as a generally the cut piles are only produced in this. The best example is the corduroy, and in corduroy these floats are present in rows, and in velveteen they are much scattered. So, after cutting these are brushed crosswise and also lengthwise to open and raise the pile, and later it is cinched and then waxed. Generally these fabrics are laid to one side. Even when we take velveteen fabrics which are having weft pile and also corduroy fabrics, and in these fabrics generally yarns that are being taken are made out of long staple fibers. Otherwise it will be a difficult task. If you have those things, it becomes too dull, and so generally long staple yarns are being used for making these fabrics, and care must be taken to see that pile effect should always be laid to one side. Actually it is better to dry clean them, because during the washing and the set, that is it is laid to one side, that is being lost sometimes, and so to lay it again to that side, one of the sides is difficult at the consumer level, and generally that is why it is better to go for a dry cleaning. Otherwise if it is washed, then we need to steam it, so that the warp pile, the piles they come up and stand in a erect position, so that the effect will not be changed in these fabrics. All pile fabrics are processed to run the pile in one direction only, And while cutting and stitching the garments, one thing we should remember about velvets and all, because they are laid to one direction, and the the light that reflects on the direction changes when it is up and down, or back and face. When we take, there is a difference in between the back and the face, and here in the velvet fabrics you have up and down also differences are there. When these garment pieces are cut, they should be cut in one direction only, so that there will not be any problem in the final garment that is being made. Honeycomb weave, and in this the name honeycomb weave is derived from the visual effect of the weave that resemble closely the hexagonal honeycombs of honeybees. The alternative raised and sunk diamond shaped areas give the effect of a honeycomb, thus adding interesting rough surface to the fabric surface. This type of honeycomb can be of two types. One is the ordinary honeycomb and another one is the Brighton honeycomb. When we take the ordinary honeycomb, it is constructed by 1/4 twill, starting maybe in the bottom left hand corner, then a similar one running in the opposite direction and starting one square in or one square down from the top left hand corner, so that there will be a clean intersection of the two lines. And at figure A, we can just find in one of the two diamonds produced, we have to leave a row of stitching points and then lift the remainder of the diamond solid. Then it is shown in the figure B, and the draft C and also the lifting plan D are produced in the usual manner, but due to the method of designing, it can be seen that only 5 shafts here are required to produce the 8 end weave, and so we can save in case of the using the shafts, and so only 5 shafts can be utilized over here. And so the characteristics of this ordinary honeycomb are, this has a cell like appearance with ridges and hollows. It has a single line crossing a single line, or a double line crossing a double diagonal lines, in the case of a twill weave. So it will be same, whether maybe a single or double it will be present. And more warp and weft floats are present in this, and it can be constructed with a pointed draft, and then a reversible fabric having similar effect on both the sides will be produced by ordinary honeycomb. And also these floats make the fabric moisture absorbent, and so this will be used mostly for producing of towels and other materials, because it is a rough interesting surface, and those extra yarns that are present on the top making these combs definitely will be aid in taking up the more of moisture. And so this is generally found in the some of the bed sheets and some of the bathrobes and also the towels and other materials. And then coming to the second type of honeycomb, that is Brighton honeycomb. This is designed to produce more honeycombs of different sizes on the surface of the fabric. It is a type of fancy weave and with more decorative effect rather than more functional. Although the weave is not frequently used as ordinary honeycomb, it is used in similar qualities for more decorative end uses, and also in some cases hand towels and glass cloths can also be produced by this. So due to the use of straight draft in this, there will not be any saving of the shafts, and we have to take the number of shafts depending upon the number of beads over there. This is a different than the ordinary honeycomb. Coming to the characteristics of this Brighton honeycomb fabrics, are these fabrics are non-reversible because the face is different from the back of the material, and then they are constructed only on the straight draft and they cannot be constructed on any other draft. And then the repeat size of a multiple of 4, and then length of the longest float is half the repeat size minus 1, that should be remembered. And then in this, a single diagonal line crosses a double diagonal line and it is different from the ordinary honeycomb weave. It is single by single or double by double. And then formation of 4 cells for repeat, that is 2 large and 2 small cells. In case of ordinary honeycomb, you find that only 1 cell per repeat is being taken up. And then the number of threads in a repeat must be at least a multiple of 4. Thus, we find that some of the complex weaves are different from the fundamental weaves, wherein we are either using a different set of yarns in order to produce a kind of pile effects or 3-dimensional effects, or we are using different repeats and different types of things in order to make more absorbent fabrics and having different textures, different designs on the surface of the fabric, so that they can be employed for different types of functions. And also when we take up the color and weave effects, yes, we can make using just simple methods of weaving, especially the fundamental weaves, and we can produce a number of varieties, because color plays a very important role in selection by the consumers. And so by playing with the colors, the designers can really produce more number of varieties in the fabrics.